Well, thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Ranking Member, for putting this this hearing together, the subcommittee. And Mr. Thomas, Mr. Allison, having grown up in a small family-owned business, wasn't car dealership, but knowing what a central role I'm sure you have in your communities, my heart goes out to you with this being imposed upon you pretty arbitrarily by the looks of things. I scratch my head and I wonder about an economic model that abandons successful, proven businesses with a track record. I just don't understand. And we've had this impact in the 5th District of Pennsylvania as well. And so I appreciate the opportunity to begin to try to understand. Has there been any, and to start with Dr. Goss, has there been any transparency at all at what criterion has been used, and by given the fact that in your statement we are, GM and Chrysler is 100% plus or minus a couple percentage points government owned. Is there any transparency in terms of what criterion was used and who's making these decisions?
I've yet to see it. Now that doesn't mean it doesn't exist, but I've yet to see that analysis. And the problem, as I see it, is the reduction in competition that will result in higher prices to the consumer, and the idea that there's economies of scale. But with the speed that this came down, I'm really concerned that there was not any analysis, that it was done by some sort of map. I have no idea if that's what it was, and saying there's no, let's reduce this, let's eliminate this dealership. That will provide more business for this dealership that's 35 miles over, and that's probably the way it was done, without any serious examination of what it does to the communities that are affected, what it does to the profitability of the dealerships, but more what I think, and again, I'm a little suspect of any analysis that may have been done because of the speed that that we would have had to have seen. This came in May. I think Chrysler's decision was in May, so this was very quick.
And just to affirm, you had made a statement that there really was no, to the best of your knowledge, no cost-benefit analysis in the decision, and I question in terms of even capturing market share, because Thomas Motors, it sounds like you're going to have to drive at least 2 hours for somebody who wants to buy a vehicle that is readily available in that radius that you service today. Is there anything to suggest, and I don't know, I just throw this out there, I represent a very rural district, as a lot of my colleagues do here. Is there any bias towards closing rural dealerships? Any evidence of that?
I don't know that for certain, but I would suspect there is that bias. And of course, what it results in is a cost that is borne by the consumer by traveling greater distances, which will be, I think, according to GM and their Chrysler, they would get to put that into their price of the new dealership, the ones that the businesses will have to make use of. So I think that's the intent, but I would question even that. I'm just not certain that there's been any real analysis, even from the private benefit and private costs, let alone putting in the public benefit and the public costs. So again, the swiftness with which this took place makes many of us question the decisions.
Mr. Allison, you had talked about within the appeal process, it was rather anonymous. You sent an email, and you don't know who it went to, and that's a pretty anonymous way to communicate. I think we all probably get those kinds of emails in our people don't put their names on when they give us feedback. But it's sad that now that you're dealing with a company that's somewhat, to say, 98% government owned, and to get that. Here's my question: was that you both have had decades, generations of experience of dealing with communications with GM in particular? Is that the standard that you experienced pre-government involved with GM?
No, sir, and I wasn't quite technically correct. There was a telephone contact set up that literally explained to you kind of step by step, but there really wasn't any full explanation, or they were very limited in what they could tell you.
Okay. And if the Chairman's indulgence, I just want to take a little different direction, Dr. Koss. For those who have not been voted off the island, I don't know, maybe they've been watching too many reality shows, and those who are going to be participating, and I've talked with some of those dealers as well, and two specific things I want to get your reaction to, if you're familiar with. One is the participation agreement, which, well, actually it rolls into one question, which I'm hearing. I wanted to see what you're hearing about that. I'm hearing, dealers that to the new GM to participate, you're going to have to you build new facilities. You may have to invest capital in the showroom. If you happen to have a foreign line of cars that you've always carried also, that's being shoved out, you're being dictated that you can no longer continue, at least within your showroom, that line of business. And that kind of rolls into pushing, because of government involvement now, where that the state laws are circumvented with the state franchise requirements. And I want to get your reaction to those.
That's certainly the case, Mr. Thompson, and I'm not a lawyer, but nonetheless, it looks like, at least at certain levels, there may be violations of the antitrust laws whereby GM or Chrysler is eliminating competition, and that does work against the consumer and at least work for those two companies. But you are talking about eliminating and some the profitable dealerships, and I know I'm repeating myself, but in an effort to capture that the consumer surplus, as we would call it. In other words, consumers having now to travel for greater distances. Well, the goal would be for GM and Chrysler to, in fact, capture that. I argue against that, but secondly, I'm not certain they calculated those things very accurately, given the speed with which it was done. So there are many problems there, but chief among them is the fact is that these are public corporations now, $64 billion,
Right.
Yet the decisions have been made that seem to be contrary to the public interest, at least on the surface.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.